So I want to say thank you, and I would like to welcome everybody to the first community meeting of the McKinley Revisioning Process. I'm just going to start off with some general housekeeping rules regarding the bathrooms. There's two of them. There's one out the hallway here to your left. There's actually one right behind this doorway at the foot of the landing, so if anytime you need to use them, feel free to do so. I would like to introduce some of our City Council members and also our school committee members, and then I'm going to introduce Studio Luz, the architectural team that's going to walk us through the presentation tonight. So I would like to introduce Mayor Brian Amerigo. I would also like to introduce Mark Silvestri, City Councilor at Large, the Director of our Senior Service Department, Deb Pesca. Our school committee members that are joining us here tonight are John Kingston, who is also the chair of the school committee plans and maintenance group, as well as school committee member, school committee woman Stacy Rizzo. And from Revere Public Schools, Dr. Kelly could not be here with us tonight, but we have Joanna Rizzo, who's the Director of Student Services from K through 5, along with Wes Pierce, who works with her, and he is the Director of Student Services grades 6 to 12. So thank you for being here and representing Revere Public Schools. I'd like to introduce now Studio Luz, and before they kick off the presentation, we're going to invite Mayor Rigo to come up and say a few choice words about the McKinley revisioning process. But to my right is the Studio Luz design team, and it would be Sophia. She's one of the head architects on the project, as well as Elise. She's also one of the architects on the project, and the project manager is Hansi Berger. So thank you for joining us. I also would like to introduce our staff up in Planning and Community Development. The director of the department is Chuck Rosette Lang, who's joining us here tonight. And now I'm going to turn the conversation over to Mayor Rigo so we can get this presentation going. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, everyone. I will be brief because I know we have a little bit of work to do, but I do want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. For those of you who don't know, and I think many of you do, the McKinley School was abandoned in 2015 when the Hill School was built and occupied. It has since been a space to collect dust of records that we have in the city, for some police training, and really just underutilized space for the community. And so what we're hopeful to do tonight and in this process is to really think through how we reimagine that space. I've heard loud and clear the need for a community space, the need for a whole bunch of different uses, and I hope that we can come to a place where this space at the McKinley School is really a well thought out community space that adds a lot of value to the quality of life that our residents have. So look forward to hearing everyone's great ideas, and we have a little bit of work to do, but with the federal money that's been provided to us, with the federal money that's been provided to the city, also to the school district, we think that that combination can really be dynamic and one that does see a great use for this space. So, and thank you for our partners to be here. And I know MassDevelopment and Studio Luz have been great partners in helping us think through all of this. So we appreciate your work on this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sophie Narman. I'm from Studio Luz. I'm the community engagement liaison. So I'm going to give the kind of presentation overview of the project, the process, what we've been looking at, and then we're going to get everybody up and moving around the space to do a couple activities to kind of get your input and collect some feedback on different aspects of the project. And so this is just looking at the team that we have collected here. I think Julie has kind of acknowledged everybody who's already in the room, Mayor Rigo, Tech, so MassDevelopment, and Revere Public Schools. And so the agenda for today is to go for about 15 minutes introducing the project, overall, and then go into 2 separate exercises. One where we're going to take some sticky notes and answer the questions that are pasted up around the room, and then the second one where we're going to be collecting some input on some of the specific spaces that we've been looking at incorporating into the McKinley School program. And so the mission for the McKinley School redevelopment is to create a space that is a beacon of accessibility, that is education and making and balancing those two, while also accommodating some workforce training programs for the city of Revere that ties into initiatives that are also happening elsewhere in the area and the region. And so the required programming that we've been hearing that is really necessary is early education and care, workforce training, which includes trades and STEM-oriented, innovation spaces, and small entrepreneur opportunity spaces, such as small offices and co-working spaces to develop small businesses for the area. And a lot of this feedback was based off of the Revere Public School Community Survey, where a centralized early childhood center was listed as the 3rd priority for the district. And so we've been looking at the site, looking at situating the McKinley School, which is at sort of the center top of the screen, where we would have early education and care, workforce training, small entrepreneur opportunities, as well as some performance and temporary art seasonal spaces to support community programming in the area, which is tying into the Suffolk Downs program, where there's more innovation, trade, and entrepreneurship programming a little bit further south in the city. And then these are the stakeholders that we're sort of looking at for each of the separate programs, for education, entrepreneurs, and then the workforce and community-based education organizations, and tying them in and engaging them in this process to get their feedback. And so for the specific programming that we're looking at, this is sort of how we see the breakdown of the programming happening. It is about 50% early educational and childhood spaces and at the core of the space, and then accommodating entrepreneur, workforce, community-based organizations, and community asset spaces in the perimeter of that, so that those can support and tie into and connect to the programming. This is also influenced by the demographics of Revere and the Revere populations for workforce development, including incumbent workers, transitional workers, and emerging workers. So we're looking at workforce training for individuals from 14 to, I think the age is 60 or 45, I think.
I think something that is really important to note is that the Revere population is majority Latinx. So how can we begin to support a program that caters to this population, specifically in terms of the age group of 14 to 21 that are considered emerging workers, transitional workers, incumbent workers?
And so looking at where the McKinley School is situated in terms of the other public buildings and the site considerations, this is sort of what is within a 5-minute walking radius. We have the Paul Revere Park, the new high school, as well as City Hall where we are right now. And so as the mayor has already described, this is sort of the existing conditions of the space within the McKinley School. It closed in 2014, and the factors leading to it was that all of the bathrooms are located in the basement, the odd-shaped classrooms were initially for storage or maintenance, and no cafeteria space or kitchen really served the school programming that was inside it, and what we're looking at is adapting this space to accommodate the new programs. And so the scope of work for what we are doing as part of this process is to reprogram for educational and community activities and do community engagement to determine programmatic needs, which is part of what we are going to be doing today. And then afterwards, Studio Luz is going to be making some recommendations for architectural improvements to support the programming. One thing that we have heard is that a new elevator to support these spaces is really important. That's something that will be considered sort of at that point in the process. And then we will also look at the conceptual design schemes and explorations of outdoor spaces that are highlighted on the plan. Just an overview of the general building square footage. It's about 36,600 gross square feet. And we're looking at a balance that would accommodate about 11,790 square feet of early education and childhood care spaces, and then leaving the remaining open square footage that is available for the program to be about 12,000 square feet. And then the remaining 12,000 square feet is allocated to circulation spaces, stairways, and looking at that new elevator space. And so then a larger breakdown of the spaces that have been outlined for each of the different program sectors. So early education, child and care, we're looking at classrooms, teachers' lounges, principal, secretary suites, parent resource centers, a speech room, an indoor sensory gym. Workforce training, we're looking at 3D printing space, Center for Applied Research, some maker spaces, fabrication labs, and then small entrepreneur spaces would be those incubator spaces, lecture hall, presentation space, and office space, and leaving some space available for these flexible programming elements that are more seasonal. And what we've looked at is one proposal of how this plan could be laid out, where it is the 50-50 split of square footage between early education, childhood care, and then the other 50% is split between the incubator spaces and the workforce training spaces. So the blue on the plan that you see is the spaces allocated to early education, childhood and care. They're located on the first and the second floor. And then between the basement, first and third floor, we have in pink, it's the innovation and workforce training spaces, and then the orange on the plan is entrepreneur, small work or co-working business development spaces.
So I think one of the most interesting possibilities of this building is to allow for a synergy between education and making, and that they should be working collectively, not separated or segregated between floor plates.
And then we're looking at this breakdown of what those spaces would actually look like on each of the individual floor plans. So looking at office space as well as a CNC and carpentry lab on the basement. And then the first floor plan looking at a combination of the early education child and classrooms as well as some office spaces that support the program, and then dividing the other small spaces into incubator spaces right on the first floor. And one of the main questions we want to talk about and get answered from you is how you want this to be. Like, what do you want to see when you first walk into the space? Should it be community space? Should it be education? What do you want to see reflected right when you walk in the building? What do you want the identity of this space to be? And then looking at the second floor plan, this is predominantly allocated to early education and childhood care. And this is in part because of what we've heard and requested in terms of the square footages that are needed for each of these classrooms. And so we're trying to use this floor plate to maximize the square footage of the classroom so that they meet the required needs. And then on the third floor, we're looking at innovation and workforce, as well as some community space, like a performance art space or a gallery that is temporary and seasonal, whatever the program and community would like to see reflected there.
So I think this very kind of synopsis presentation was demonstrating, without any community input, how could we begin to see the targeted program distributed throughout the building. But I think that this community workshop and various community workshop is going to begin to provide us additional information so that we can take your community feedback, the programmatic distributions of the program that would fit in the building, and then make some recommendations. So this was just our first attempt, and it's not something that is fixed. We have to hear your voices. So I think the first one is...
So I think we're going to go into our first activity and exercise and get people kind of up and moving around the room. We have the first one, which is called Personal Voice, and we're going to give that about 20 minutes. There's 5 questions around the room. If you click next, I can also talk. So we're going to answer each individual question individually on some sticky notes that are located next to the slides. And we're going to give each, if you give each question.
So these are the first questions, right?
Yeah.
So typically what we like to say is the first, you'll see the questions right in the back. And the first question is, what would you like to happen here? So what we love to hear is, this is, what would you like to happen here? You write down your thoughts on your sticky note and you offer it to everyone and you post it on the back. So I think the first one is right behind here.
What would you like to happen here?
So
Yeah.
what would you like to happen here in this building? What comes to mind? Write it down, blurt it out, and post it in the back. That way, you have your personal voice, but you also share it with each other. So can I have a volunteer? Who will go first?
Because all of this discussion is very important, and I want to make sure that everyone can hear what is going on. So if you want to express your vision or your personal concern or your personal choice, I would ask that you approach the podium. If you want to leave your name, you can. If you don't have to. But we want to make sure that people's voices are heard. This is a community process. Just to go back to what we were talking about before, a space for people to gather, commercial kitchen, community space, also a place for seniors and veterans, whether it be housing or sharing workforce development trades and just ability to transfer those skills on to a newer generation. So Deb, would you like to continue your thoughts up here at the podium, or is there other things that you would like to add to the initial discussion? Feel free to come up. This is an open mic. Oh, okay. If I had known, I would have made sure that I had a traveling mic. Stacy, would you like to come up?
I'm sorry, Julie, you forgot one other program, which was childcare.
Childcare, sorry about that.
Along with the commercial.
Come on up. Come on up. Come on down. We want to hear from you.
I think that was a really amazing point that a lot of people forget the entire senior population of Revere. And first and foremost, for everybody watching, thank you for your service if you are a veteran and veteran families. We appreciate you, and they're the most neglected people. I don't know how you feel about it, just because I wanted to feel out the room and maybe just from your experience. How would you feel about using that as a center and where we can train seniors towards them being more comfortable with technology, so that we could get the kids involved and the seniors? I think that would be really great. I think there's a huge fear of technology, and I love that you said clerical work and filing, but that's all gonna be technological soon, and I don't want them to get discouraged if we set them up with something only to later down the line be like, well, actually, we're going digital. So I would really love if we could combine that, and then somehow we'd still probably make space. McKinley is a pretty large area. We could still find that commercial kitchen space in the cafeteria, maybe utilize it. Are we completely taking it down, or are we just renovating? No, renovating. So perfect. I think that will find a beautiful mesh. I'm trying to find the words for it, but thank you. Sorry.
Let's have someone write that down. Once you present on the mic, make sure you write it down and put it on the wall.
I'm in awe of this young lady. She is wonderful. So my first thing was commercial kitchen, because I love food. And then the next thing I was thinking about is the training, not only for seniors in technology, but we have high school students that can use some internships. But a lot of it, I would love to see our special needs students get involved, whether they're young or special needs adults, because they need training to go out and be able to live on their own, or to have a job, whether it's Market Basket, whether it's at the corner grocery store. I just want to make sure it's inclusive of everyone. So, but the commercial kitchen really sounds good.
Yes, please come up and please write your notes and make sure to post them. Make sure to post them. Yeah. Just in case you forgot. Please post your thoughts.
Hi, everyone. I haven't met you yet, but I'm the executive director of the REVERE Chamber of Commerce, so I really appreciate, as a female entrepreneur, I really appreciate a lot of the things that I'm seeing. I wasn't sure what to expect. But for the most part, I think they're all great ideas. I'm not speaking today, though, however, from the chamber. I'm speaking as a parent. I have an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and I did not give birth to athletes. I gave birth to theater kids. And I had the opportunity to spend some time recently. I'm spending more time at the high school to support their internship program. I have an intern from the high school. She's awesome. And I could not believe, in speaking to these seniors, there's no drama program. There's really not much for the arts. And it broke my heart because as a theater kid, if something at the school doesn't exist for you, it's almost like you're embarrassed about it. Now, these two particular students that I got to know that were the ones that informed me that there was no drama program at the high school, I was blown away. They said after school they go to a community program in East Boston, which actually Mr. Mafucci, I believe, runs it, who used to be our music teacher at the Beachmont years ago. But anyway, I appreciate the mention of some performance art space. It sounds a little bit more like a gallery, but I would love to see if the high school, if it doesn't happen by the time Layla's a freshman in high school, I'd love to see some sort of program here in the city where after school she can go be a theater kid, because not everybody is an athlete. You know what I mean?
I think in terms of performance arts, we're thinking of a multi-purpose room where theater can occur, gallery, art
Music
performances,
lessons, vocal lessons.
open mic.
Right.
Exactly, a space of
Right.
performance.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Come on up. Please make sure to write your note, write your thoughts.
Hi, my name is John Kingston. I'm on the school committee, but that's not my presence here. To answer your thoughts, there is a drama program at the high school. It just started this year. I know the teacher very well, and I think she's trying to do a great job. It's a little difficult with COVID, but they were originally gonna try to put on a production in the spring, but I don't know if that's gonna happen just due to COVID. But there is a class for that, and there is a drama club that does meet after school. So they do have one at the high school. The Rumney Marsh also has a drama club at the Rumney Marsh Middle School. My focus on this is, while I appreciate what the seniors, and I appreciate everything Debbie said, and I think she's 100% right, I would really like to see this, because of the size of the building, as you said, I'd really like to see it for early childhood. People are challenged with childcare. It's very expensive. I was fortunate when my kids were younger that my parents were able to do that, but that's sometimes not available. So I think having the early childhood and part of the building. My only other thing that I would stress with the rest of the building is please make it flexible. So walls can be taken, when I say taken down, pushed back, moved, so bigger spaces could be created for different things. Because 5 years from now, we might not be doing the same things we're doing now. But if you have permanent walls that can't be moved, now you where's the money come to restructure it? So if there's flexible walls, petitions that can be moved, that type of thing, to make bigger spaces for different meetings and things like that, I think a flexible space for the rest of the building would be awesome, because it gives you so much more opportunities.
John, great.
Thank you.
So much. And make sure to put flexible walls
I
on
will.
your Post-it notes, because flexible walls is very different than flexible space. And it's very important.
Mark Silvestri, and all the ideas are great, and that's kind of where my idea was leading. I think we need a multi-use community center where we can do everything from childcare to, as we're having the pilot program for the tech students now here in Revere, have partnerships with union trades and have different ideas where we can teach Arabic and Spanish and use the cultural pros that we have in the city and take advantage of those and be able to have a mixed use and a variety of things that we can do at the space, and not put childcare or seniors or this, but have a open community center where both the community and the city can come and use their talents and ideas and give to each other. I think that's the best way to use a space like that, and just not lock down one particular area, but target it so it's more like almost a YMCA type building, or where you're having computer classes and tech teaching for seniors and whatnot, because I think that's one of the missing pieces that we have is our seniors are being left behind in the computer area and in the technology area, and now you can't do anything without having to learn how to use a computer. My parents ain't at the senior age yet, and they're still in that gray area of just learning how to use the technology to their advantage. But I know when you just get over that age, they're being kind of just moved away, and they're lost in that area. So I think having a community center where we can focus on a multi-arts, drama, trades, I think that's going to be the best usage we can make out of that instead of just locking it into one particular area.
Good evening. My name is Corey DePina. I'm the program director for a nonprofit in East Boston called ZoomX. I'm also a Revere resident. I believe that the space could be based under education, but fall under the areas of personal development, artistic development, and professionalism. So when thinking about healthy living and educating people of all ages on how to eat, how to cook, and how to live nutritious, maybe even a farm or a garden in the back would be really nice for some agriculture so people can learn that stuff. In terms of artistic development, everything from like private lessons to dancing to art to sculpting. I'm imagining that young people can be there during the school hours and seniors can be there, and then have an emphasis on teenagers after school so they have a place to go and they're not going to other parts of the city or other cities for employment or for entertainment or pleasure. And then professionalism, tying in pathway career opportunities, having it be a maker space where we can partner with hotels and tech companies and have them come in and offer internship opportunities for teenagers and employment opportunities. It can be a hub also where the city can take funds from the state and city to be able to employ teenagers to go out and do jobs in the neighborhood. And yeah, I feel like everyone kind of has their time and space, and if we can organize it in terms of programming really smart and have it be useful, it could be really flexible in terms of that, it could be really good. And in terms of the actual build, when thinking about a performance space and a space for people to celebrate the things that they are learning there, I really would like for you guys to take into consideration the acoustics of the space and the creative tech and media components in terms of accessibility and hot wiring and making sure that everything is kind of like put in place and you don't have to necessarily buy or do things later to make it sound good and look good in terms of aesthetics and soundproofing. And we definitely could use a space for people to congregate and like party and dance and have food and share stories and have meetings outside of City Hall. So I'm thinking the idea of like education, but education within the components of those three areas of like personal development, how can one be healthy and make healthy decisions, artistic development in terms of like learning a trade or a skill or art, and then also professionalism really big and getting some money into our teenagers' hands and having them see a future in the city, making money in the city where they live, as opposed to leaving it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was really inspiring in terms of a framework. Corey, can you please put Post-its? And we're taking notes as well, but I was really inspired by your framework, like the personal, the artistic, and the professional development to look at the building through those lens, and it's a center for that. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joanna Rizzo, and I'm here speaking on behalf of Dr. Kelly and I. So the Early Learning Center concept came about when I became the Director of Early Childhood back in 2017. And the long-term vision that Dr. Kelly and I had was to create a centralized early childhood center in the district. And when we surveyed the community a couple of years ago, a centralized early learning center was one of the top 3 priorities in the community, and that was actually part of your presentation. And sitting here listening tonight to all of the feedback from all of you, a lot of the things that all of you have mentioned, working with the seniors, bringing in the veterans, having the job training, all of that are things that I feel we can incorporate into our early childhood center, because Wes knows we have talked about having high school internships. Stacy, we've talked about this for years, about bringing the high school students into the early childhood program. And I think that all of the ideas, I've written everything down. Julie is sending me contact information. I think everything that we have talked about tonight fits in perfectly with the vision that Dr. Kelly and I have for the Early Learning Center. So I appreciate everything that everyone has said tonight. And I think moving forward that the reimagining of the McKinley School is going to be an amazing experience for this community. And so I appreciate all of the information that we have tonight, and thank you.
So just for a sense of clarification.
Yes.
Your center, your early education center would serve age groups from what age group?
It's a preschool only. So
Okay.
right now, our preschool in the district is housed in 3 different elementary schools.
Okay.
We are going to be taking those 3 separate sites and combining them into
Okay.
one early learning center, similar to what is in Malden Public Schools
The
and
reason
Saugus
Joanne,
Public
the only
Schools.
reason I asked for clarification is because if it's serving workforce programming, if it's
Yes.
serving the elderly and the veteran, how do you see the school being located here serving that in terms of program?
So I was thinking, so right now, we have the senior abatement program, we have the veteran abatement programs. We can take in volunteers into our program, and they can do hours. Those are the types of programs that we could do. We also have paraprofessionals that work in our classrooms, so we can explore how that might work.
Into the center to
Yes.
provide that resource for the
Yes.
community. Perfect.
We also
This is
have
very
a-
important for the architect because we need to materialize spatially the relationships of all the
Yes.
different constituents and stakeholders. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, in terms of time, we have about 30 more minutes, so I want to make sure that if there's something that was not mentioned, that we please hear your thoughts in terms of like new ideas that have not been mentioned, and then we can move forward. But please, that's why you have your post-it notes, because your voice does matter, and you can record it and provide it.
So, no, come on up, and we're going to have everybody,
You know, again, I'm coming here with 2 different perspectives because I'm very business-driven. I'm the director of the REVERE Chamber of Commerce, but I'm also a mom, and both my kids go to the Hill School. Next year, my daughter's going to be going off to junior high. But in terms of traffic, not to be a Debbie Downer, but how's that going to work if we're combining, for example, all these preschool children at the same time at one space with the Hill School right across the street? Of course, I would assume that, you know, in terms of scheduling, things wouldn't all happen at the same time, but I do think that it's important that everybody understands it's a tight street. So that's it.
So I think in terms of your notes, please, what you do not want to see here is a humongous traffic jam. So please write that down. Things that you do not want to see here. That's very important to hear as well. Like what would be a very bad concept here?
so I just want to mention,
Drop in the center. Just like with no good programming, just a drop in the center.
I just want to bring to your point, Amanda, about the traffic. And I mean, that is, you know, one of the beauties of this building is it is centrally located. And so when we look at it from a planning perspective and being in residents and workforce development partners to offer training in a place that's centrally located, it's accessible by walking, by biking. There's also 3 MBTA bus lines that go right by there, and it's not even a quarter of a mile walk from the bus stop to the location. So we're looking at it as the transportation as a major barrier for a lot of our residents that really don't live that far from job opportunities, job workforce training opportunities. But transit is not always reliable, or it's not always easy to make transfers, or it's not economical feasible. So we're looking at this as this is a central location for people to access. We recently did a study not too long ago looking at transit services and private transit services as a shuttle for the city residents to access. And one of the comments that was made by the gentleman conducting the study said, you know, REVERE is very well connected to a lot of places, but it's not well connected to itself. And when you think about that, I mean, we have 3 major highways that basically divide the city in fours in most places. So it's hard for, people to access, somebody who lives on the east side of the city to access job training, or somebody on the west side of the city to access job training. So having something centrally located, we feel will help allow people to access that opportunity. As for the Hill School, just in terms of walkability, that school is number 2 on the school that is accessed by pedestrians or kids that walk to school. We have data to back that. We're always trying to improve transportation measures, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and how we can better improve transportation to and from the building at all hours of the day. So we welcome that. One other point I do want to make is that the Department of Community Development will actually hold public comment or public opinion open for about a week after this presentation. So if there's something here tonight that you forgot to mention, you want to let us know, feel free to contact us and let us know. We're keeping a master spreadsheet of anybody that contacts us with any information, any ideas, and that is something we're going to share with Studio Luz and MassDevelopment. So feel free to send us additional comments as they come about.
Thank you, Julie. I think I would like to take this next 10 minutes to really fold almost all the questions in one to allow you guys to speak. This building is a very kind of heroic building. It's a masonry building. And one of the most important questions that I would like to ask you is, when you open the door, what would you like to see first? Your what? Your office back? Yes. So you open a door, what would make you feel welcome? What would bring community here? Smiling face. So you want someone to greet you. You want a welcome desk.
More than that, I think it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. It needs to be open right. It needs to be, when you walk in, like, you feel like you're going to be enriched. So if you walk into a space like that, and then that's what the building itself is giving you, it's almost like it fits perfectly. If you're walking into that building, you know what's going there, whether there's a person at that desk or not.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So, I think it's about light. So space and knowing that space is kind of open, airy, that would be, aside from a smiling face, I think having light is something that's very welcoming.
How can the surrounding community be invited here?
So all of us in Revere have a lot of perspectives, and I think a really great way to invite people in here is to address specific groups. So having a senior night, having an Arabic speaking night, having a Spanish Latin night, Latinx night, having those exact reasons that you are like, hey, I want a space for this, I want to have space for this. Designate certain nights for those exact purposes and invite people of that demographic to come together, and while they're there, educate them on the other nights as well, so they can join in and be educated on other cultures and perspectives as well. Thank you.
I miss a good old cork board with a whole bunch of information, so maybe like a more advanced space that tells you about opportunities that are either in the city or within that building that you could take advantage of. And in terms of surrounding communities being invited there, if it didn't have a space for performance or a space for people to commune, we could invite other groups to come and do, master classes or workshops or performances. That could be pretty cool.
That sounds great, Corey. So what I'm hearing is you need a hook. Like, you need a purpose to bring the community here, and then you need to expand that horizon by providing information on how to do their own personal growth. Sounds great. Good. Okay, so I think if I've covered everything, and if I've covered things that you do not want to see here, this is really important. Yes, check. This is really important because what I've listened to is I don't want to drop in. I don't want to see a wall of no information. A lot of, my apologies, Mayor, a lot of municipal buildings feel that you're not welcome, right? And so how do we ensure that this is a welcoming community for all cultures? Okay. Yep.
Thank you. And what I'll add to that is also all generations, right? So for those of you who don't know me, Tech, the Director of Planning and Community Development, but also a longtime youth worker, a longtime resident, and the like. And what I want to encourage people to think about as well, when you think about what's happening in the space, but also what's happening outside of the building. Want me to take it? Okay. Sorry, I'm very muffled. So I would encourage folks to think about what's happening in the building. Probably most likely at this point, 18 hours a day is the hope, right? How can we bring the inside programs outside? And how do we bring the outside community inside? So really think through that as you imagine what will happen in this space. And what does that mean in terms of a community garden or pop-up events in the where the basketball court currently is? And also, how does it connect to parts of other nodes in the sort of central Broadway city network? So the senior center, City Hall, the Hill School, the stadium, how do all these pieces play off each other? And how does it really complement and sort of capture people and bring it to the heart of the city? So when you think about programs, uses, how do people get there? How do people with mobility challenges or language access barriers get there? That's what I would just encourage everyone to keep thinking about. And so when you look at these prompts and stick your Post-its up, or as you think through strategies for getting involved in some of the upcoming workshops, community meetings, and surveys, start talking to your neighbors, your colleagues, and think through what would be really meeting the needs of the community that, if not for the centrally located building that the city is pushing a local vision for, we couldn't do, right? So people can walk there, people can bike there, people can do all these things, people can park behind City Hall and just sort of dart over, right? So really think about models that you've maybe seen in other communities or neighborhoods where you feel like, wow, this is in the heart of everything, and if only we had this right there, we could connect all these pieces better. So I just want to encourage people to think in that way and not maybe get too stuck in, you said this, and maybe that's not what we want. So just keep working on that. And that's what I would just encourage people to dream big, because what we can fit and afford to have at this building will do, but everything that you're saying really informs a lot of the stuff of what the planning department's thinking about for other facilities. So I'm really excited to hear so much enthusiasm for art space, commercial kitchens, things like that. But I just wanted to encourage people to really dream big in a lot of ways. So thank you.
So what I would like to do next is to take 15 minutes. It's almost 7, so we'll conclude around 7:15. Is to have you do a fun work group exercise. And so for those that are on TV, we do have future workshops that are more online collaborative on Zoom that you can participate. But this one is going to be more group work, but we are offering this online. Do you want to explain the next session? This is where you become your own architect or decorator, and you are envisioning visually what the space can be. So you get to be an architect today.
I thought just to add to Hansi's point about becoming your own architect and visual designer for the building, we are actually going to be leaving some of the graphics and some of the comment boards up. We're going to transfer them downstairs to the first floor of City Hall. So that way all residents can come in and add their comment after watching this meeting tonight. And then we will probably, Tech and I will probably take hold of some of these boards that are here where you will have a chance to design it, and also have people other residents come in and do that as well. So if you are not here at the meeting tonight, you will have a chance to participate the same way as the attendants are participating right now.
So for the next activity, we have a couple stations set up around, and as you can see here, we're asking you to basically take one of these, and on it we have a couple questions. This one is for specifically performing art and cultural spaces, and so we're asking, how would you want the space to look like? What does it mean to you for it to be a performance art and public space? And so you can take time in a small group or by yourself and think through those questions and write us some answers. And then we have stickers here of what that space could look like. And you can take the images that resonate with you about that space and stick them to here with what you like about them, so that we can really see what that space resonates with you and how you feel about it.
And we have glue sticks. This is going to be low tech. Glue sticks and tape. So if there's an image that you love, stick it on the sheet. We have, if there's a kitchen or a communal kitchen, what does that kitchen look like? Stick it on. So this is purely aesthetic, visuals, light, shade, color, what resonates for you in terms of, maker spaces, educational spaces. So I think now you can, there's 5 stations, so there's 2 there, right? And I think in groups of 3 or 4, and then you guys can rotate in different sections, and we'll facilitate that.
If you guys could post the comments that you guys had about the last couple questions, I believe the board is right there on the back wall, just so that we make sure we get all of your voices.
So we have a few more minutes where people can continue to fill out the worksheets that are at the various tables. This will conclude the live portion of this meeting for tonight. As we stated earlier in the night, the public comment period for this project will be open until for about anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks after this date of March 8th. We will be presenting the boards that are up here on the wall here tonight for the public to come into City Hall and leave comments on them, as well as the worksheets that the participants here in the meeting are working on. So I want to thank everybody for attending tonight, and we look forward to the next series of workshops for this project. On March 14th at 11 a.m., we will have a Spanish workshop that will be through Zoom. On March 21st, we have a nighttime workshop that is also through Zoom, and then on March 23rd, we have our final workshop, which will be at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The final presentation date is set to be determined. Right now, it's scheduled for April 24th. And we are just trying to find an appropriate space for that, because right now there's actually a city council meeting in the council chambers. We may see if we can move it possibly to the Hill School or another location that's centrally located. So thank you, everyone. It's great to see so much love for the McKinley School and so much love for the community and for all the projects that can be housed out of here. Have a great night.